Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective, hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Corey, and he's our emotional supporter, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside their locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we help create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening. Fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. These are the hardest days as a sports fan. No matter what sport you watch and which team you support, ultimately everyone will come up short except for one. And every fan base, except for one, will go through some heartache or heartbreak. Some particularly more brutally than others. The sad part, or the sad truth of it all, is we are more likely to go through that heartbreak and hard feelings and experience the absolute low of a loss or a season's end than we are to experience the absolute highs, joys, and jubilations of ultimate victory. We aren't going to beat around it today. No intro, no outline, no nothing. We're jumping right into the deep end because there is no point in delay. The Avalanche's journey has come to an end, and somehow every year becomes a worse way to end that journey. I don't think anyone expected it to end like this, how it did, or at all, really. Yes, I expected a lot from this team. Winning a Stanley Cup is the hardest thing to do in sports. We very gratefully know that from experience, but instead we now have to sit on the sidelines and watch as others fight for hockey's ultimate trophy. And to be totally honest with you, not that I obviously expected it or thought that we deserved it, but I did think that I would be going to another parade this June. I really did. But the fact of the matter is, despite making it to the third round, we still weren't even close. 8 wins earned of the total 16 needed to claim the 34.5 pounds of silver. I am feeling a whirlwind of emotions even today, and I'm frankly still processing the entire thing, as I am sure many of you are right now as well. Now we have to deal with the fallout of what has occurred as we look for what, whos, and whys, what went wrong, what could have been, or what could we have done differently, who is responsible, who is to blame, why did this happen, and why couldn't we have done better? As I laid my head down the night before writing this, the perfect way to phrase everything was in my head. Did I spring from my bed and write it all down? Of course not. But the core ideas remain the same. Here's what I'm going to do and not going to do on today's episode. I am going to start with what I am not going to do. I am not going to break down what went wrong for the Avalanche in this series. Today. The hardest part of being even the smallest sports analyst or personality in people's lives is when things like this happen and shit goes, well, let's face it, about as wrong as it possibly could, people look to you and ask, so what's wrong with the Avalanche? The truest and most honest answer that I have to that question now is, I don't know. It is a complete cop-out, but it's true. I genuinely do not know what happened, how it happened, why it happened. I sat there watching the games, scrutinizing the details, getting my emotions toyed with like any good sports fans, but like most others, including some of the best analysts for the Avalanche, I do not know how the Avalanche, who had lost one game through 2 rounds with the highest scoring offense in addition to the stingiest defense, the Rocket Richard winner, multiple 30-goal scorers, a well-constructed veteran defense, a Jennings trophy-winning goalie tandem, an adaptable style, could not even hand the Vegas Golden Knights a single loss in their biggest series. A Vegas Golden Knights team that lost to 2 lesser teams that use a similar play style to the Avalanche. I don't know why. There was nothing the Avalanche could do to overcome this. I sat there baffled every game. I would say that I had my mouth agape, but it was more like a 1,000-yard stare. It is truly inconceivable, nonsensical, and quite frankly, should not have happened, at least in the way that it did. which leads me to what I am going to do. I will endeavor to find any sort of explanation for what has just occurred. I do, admittedly, already have some thoughts and perspectives on what happened already. Wow, that's redundant. Some thoughts on what happened, but I am not going to dive into those today because I want to create the most well-informed and well-rounded breakdown that I can for all of you out there, no matter how few. Because just like you, I want answers too. Because this is a show from a fan perspective. I want to gather as many perspectives as I can because sports have something happening everywhere on the playing surface and off of it. Therefore, I don't want it to just be mine or Dom's perspective on what occurred throughout this series, but from people who also closely watch and cover the Avalanche. These other perspectives are not there to supplement my own, but to add more colors to help make the most complete painting possible. And I want the luxury of time to create this breakdown. Is that selfish? Maybe, but it's also to give a bit more wiggle room for more information to become available, such as injury reports and any front office press conference or action. But I don't know what happened, and I don't know what is going to happen next. What I will also do today is just spout out my feelings, as I have already started to do as well as share one key thought on coaching going forward. And I actually want to start with coaching, and that is Jared Bednar. I am at a horrific crossroads right now. The team under Bednar has never lost a series in less than 6 games until now. People like to point to the fact that every time Bednar encounters this quote style of close quote of play that he can't adapt to it. But I do still have a hard time believing that after all these years, he still somehow doesn't have an answer. That doesn't make sense. I'm not absolving him of fault, however, but I acknowledge the fact that the team has gotten better since their championship season and that this team seemed destined for more only to fall short again. And as Eric Johnson said, the common denominator, despite so many changes around him, is Jared Bednar. But my response to everything is thus. Do you want him coaching somewhere else? Whether you want him fired or not, you must acknowledge that Jared Bednar is one of the best coaches in the NHL. He connects with players in a way other NHL coaches cannot, and can consistently help find ways to elevate and deploy players to get the best out of them where others have failed. He can lead teams to incredible regular seasons and, as we've seen, Stanley Cups. Knowing our luck, if he was fired, Dallas would fire Glenn Gulletson and then hire Jared Bednar. Bednar would have a job the next day, given his resume. He is sought after in this league, regardless of what you may think of him. Which means the Avalanche, as a team, would have to then play against the coach who knows them better than anyone. Do you want that? And do you want him coaching somewhere else? Who do you want instead? All the coaches that I want are certainly comfortable where they're at, and the only one that isn't has said no way more times than he has said yes. That's DU Pioneers coach David Carl, by the way. This is where I'm absolutely torn because I agree that a change might be necessary for the Avalanche to take another step once again. But Jared Bednar deserves to coach in this league, and I don't want to see him coaching elsewhere. Here is my biggest emotional gripe at this moment in regards to the Avalanche. Dom was present when I said this following the sweep. Why can the Avalanche never just lose? Why can it not just be, well, that was a hard-fought 6-game series, but they just got beat in the end. Disappointing, but good game. No, the Avalanche always find a way to lose in quite possibly the most dramatic, gut-wrenching, and of course, headline-writing fashions imaginable. Here are some examples in case you have forgotten, including this year. The Avalanche, after setting their own regular season points record, flew into the playoffs, sweeping their first-round opponent in the Kings, dominating the Wild in round 2, capped off by a 3-goal comeback and an OT win to win the series in just 5 games, to then go into their Western Conference Finals series and have a game where they led by 3 and get beat anyways, and then get swept by the NHL's biggest villains in, oh yeah, once again, the Western Conference Finals. The year before that, they faced their biggest rival in the Stars in round 1 and get pushed all the way to game 7 despite dominating the stat sheets the entire series. And then, just when it seems like victory is in hand in the third period of game 7, their former teammate Mikko Rantanen has a third period hat trick to eliminate them from the series and send them home in round 1. The year before that, they gentlemen swept the Jets to then meet Dallas in round 2, where they are the underdogs and are in game 6 looking to force a game 7 when they find themselves in double OT on home ice, only to be eliminated by another former Av, Matt Duchene, in that double OT and are eliminated. The year before that, in their Stanley Cup titled defense year, they face a wild card team in the upstart Seattle Kraken, who are seemingly in these playoffs out of sheer luck, and yet here they are. They push the Avalanche to 7 games off the back of one of the greatest goaltending performances from who else? Former Av Philip Grubauer, and beat the Avalanche in round 1 in an absolutely massive upset to stun the hockey world. The year prior, the Avalanche never got eliminated and only lost 4 times. They won a Stanley Cup. Then finally, the year before that, the Avalanche face Vegas in round 2 and easily handle games 1 and 2 before dropping the next 4 and being sent home in devastating fashion. The Avalanche can never just lose. And because of that, the narrative that surrounds them is brutal. It is certainly not an unearned one, but the swirling miasma that consumes this team probably creates unbearable pressure, even if there are some teams who perhaps should take even more flack, but don't. 2 examples. The Dallas Stars are this generation's version of the 2010 Sharks. No offense, Dom. So much regular season and playoff success, and yet only 1 Cup final appearance and 0 Stanley Cups since 1999. The Edmonton Oilers went to 2 back-to-back Stanley Cup finals and multiple conference finals with arguably the best players in the world, 0 Stanley Cups, and yet the noise of the Avalanche is the loudest. We always want people to talk about our team, but the team, somehow always finds a way to make sure it isn't about what you want to hear. The Avalanche's expectations every year are always all or nothing, cup or bust, win now, and why shouldn't it be? It's how this team is built, but when it's built like this, you have to produce, and they still haven't again. It's frustrating because I can handle the journey ending, but I wish it would quit ending like this.
Yeah, it's either ecstasy or absolute devastation.
I thought you were going to say agony. Ecstasy or agony
too. I mean, yeah, it is ecstasy or agony, and you have that cup win one time, but each of these other years has ended in agony. And this team is so good when there isn't a clear weakness to blame. It sets a high bar, one that is an immense pressure that's incredibly difficult to meet, especially when it's already the hardest championship to win. And the Oilers you mentioned. Oh, okay, well, we can blame their goaltending, even though the goaltending shows up randomly in the playoffs. Also, to be fair, we're not in Canada media, so maybe they catch a lot more flack and we don't always see it. So that is an asterisk I'd put on the Oilers, but you're right. There's no offense taken. The 2010 Sharks are widely considered in the contention for the best team to never win a cup. They fell short far too often, despite really putting themselves in a position to succeed. And there's not always, it's hard to explain that. And that's the moral of tonight's episode there isn't always a rhyme or reason why. You've said this, Corey. Some teams just are bad matchups sometimes, even with adjustments. And the fact that the Central has been the loaded, the well thought of, the statistically better division for the past half a dozen years, probably more. And yet the last 4 years, the Western Conference has been represented by the Pacific. It's now Vegas in the year they win the Cup, Edmonton, and Vegas once again. And that, it's so odd. But ultimately, if you make it to the playoffs, once you're there, that's part of why it's so difficult, is all bets are off. None of what happened during the regular season matters anymore, and you just have to go out there and win those 16 games. Whether you came in with 120 points or snuck in with 89, you're at the same ground zero and have a shot. Why Vegas? I mean, that's one that we could get into as well. But for me, it's just like, why did it have to be Vegas? I call them the Devils team. I do. And I know there is an actual New Jersey Devils, but no, Vegas is are actual demons out there on the ice, and it just frustrates me. Never could I hate the jersey so much, but respect to the players for going out there and taking it. I can't believe I'm saying it, but they went out there, and the thing is, I don't think they wanted it more than the Avalanche, but they played like it. I think part of why it's so devastating is, and again, we're not trying to analyze too much, but just the way they went out with a whimper, the Avalanche did. It just didn't feel like they were in the fight when we're there at the watch party in Ball Arena. And to have that building be relatively empty from fans, it felt like the fan base had already resigned itself after going down 3-0. Maybe it's because I'm a Sharks fan and I'm just an idiot with blind hope, but I feel like I had more hope than some of Avs faithful, more faith than Avs faithful, and that's weird to say. But when we give up, we become a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
No, I don't think you're wrong on both counts. One, the Avalanche themselves just gave off the I'm tired, boss type energy. They just looked out of gas from the moment the puck dropped. They themselves looked like they had already resigned to losing, which is very disappointing. And you're right, the watch party, because I had been to the watch parties before when we made it to the Western Conference Final 2022, and let me tell you, it was packed. The fact that pretty much, maybe 1,000, 2,000 people were there, which sounds like a lot, but in an 18,000 seat arena, it really isn't. I think tells you a lot, but it's true. And I hate to say, even from myself, who I will always try and keep it as positive as I can, because I know a lot of other podcasts will really push any kind of negative agenda, but even I was subject to feeling that apathy. And that's the word that I would use to describe the feeling, is it's just apathy. Yeah, there ended up being some hope when we scored the one goal towards the end of the third, and if they hadn't let in the second one, who knows? But as we've said before, we have to live in reality. We can't live in what ifs, and that isn't what happened. So it's just a hard pill to swallow, because you're right. That's how we described it. They went out with a whimper, where it felt like game after game in this series, they needed to put everything on the line, and they just couldn't do it anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you how bad it was watching that game. That goal, when it was scored, you were obviously there, Corey. You saw my energy. I was kind of pissed off. Not like, oh wow, there's a goal, we're in this. I was like, where the fuck was that 50 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Of game time, of course. Where was the puck being shot? And just pucks to the net. I swear we said that so many times. Where were guys screening in front? Like where were the fundamentals of hockey, the things this team did all year long in the prior 2 series, right? You got 8 wins in 9 games and you couldn't, and then you play that tired. I mean, you're in Vegas instead of at Colorado Elevation and you're playing that tired from the jump. It was frustrating. And then it's like, oh boy, do I have to respawn some hope now after I'm resigning myself to this defeat? Now you score with barely any time left. It was frustrating. Instead of something where you'd be like, hey, a goal, we should be happy. And I'm like, oh, brother, why can, another example I just wanted to throw in, going back to some of those teams where maybe the media doesn't make as big of a deal, is think of Carolina, for example. Obviously, maybe not this year, knock on wood here, but they've already got more wins this year than the prior however many combined in the Eastern Conference Final. But since it happened every year and they crashed out every year, it's the same old story. It doesn't get the same degree of media or pain level. Fans could have apathy going into it. With the Avalanche, this team is better, and we know it's better. The expectations were high because they should be. And that's what makes it such a major letdown. Not going to get, again, into too much of the analysis, but that's just the emotion of it all.
Yeah.
You mentioned coaching before. As far as coaching, really quickly.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question to you.
Okay, yeah.
Fucking,
if you want to pose your question the way you had it in your head. I feel like I
had one more thing to say. I don't quite know what it was, other than I feel like, obviously, oh yeah, I remember. Clearly we stole Carolina's West or conference final curse now, because what the fuck? I mean, at this point, if Carolina doesn't take care of business, I'm going to be pretty upset, even though I want Montreal to win, obviously. But Carolina wins, I'm not going to be mad about it, because I know Montreal is going to have plenty of other opportunity there. And I obviously want my team to win first and foremost. But at this point, Dom, I think you are kind of secondarily an Avalanche fan. I mean, you live here in Colorado with me, and obviously hosting this show, you've gotten a lot more exposed to the Avalanche, which is why I would say also in tandem with that, I'm secondarily a Sharks fan. But, your expectations for the Sharks are kind of where they ended up falling this year. So kind of exactly what you would expect. But you're right, which is insane to me at this point, and this isn't meant to be a dig, but it's like the expectations for the Avs are always as high as they, as you said, rightfully should be, and yet every year we're just being met with the same result, even though, yes, we finally made it further this year again. It just, you didn't get really any more wins than you have the last couple of fucking years, so what does it matter? You've fallen short of your goal once again. But I think in counter to that point, once again, I think it's right to be critical of the lack of wins, because they're right. They should have. There is a lost dynasty with the Avalanche, and we won't get into it super a lot, because I'd love to do like a full breakdown on that. But that's a whole thing. It's not just this year. It's going back year after year, and I think there are reasons why the Avalanche have not, been able to, I think, have the success they've been able to they had before. But now it felt like this year they should have been getting back to it. And this is a team that it does feel like should have had multiple cups, or at the very least multiple chances at a cup like the Oilers were. But they just never got to that level. But once again, my counter to that is, as big as the expectation is, once again, only 2 teams can compete for the cup every single year, and only one can walk away with it. Not to mention, the Avs are a great team. They always have been. There are other great teams. That is the nature of sports. Great teams lose to other great teams. That is what happens. The problem, obviously, is the Avalanche losing in the way that they did. That's fine. And like I said, we will break that down. We will analyze that. But to constantly, I feel like the way that sometimes they're discussed, it's like, why haven't they won it every fucking year? I don't know, dude. Why didn't fucking Edmonton win it the 2 times in a row that they got it? Why didn't the Sharks win it every fucking year when they were so good? Again, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to talk on your team here. It's just the most, I think, relevant example for a team that had a lot of success in their era and then just never quite captured the ultimate prize. Not to mention the Avalanche still did win a cup. The fact that they got one at all is, I think, a very impressive feat in and of itself. And I don't know, maybe this is just me coping with the fact that I'm upset, and I agree with the fact that my team should have had more success. But once again, it's like, you're never going to win it every year. That's not possible. We're not living in the 80s where the Islanders won 4 cups in a row, or you know, the fucking Oilers winning multiple in a row with fucking Gretzky. That's just not how it happens anymore because of the salary cap, because of parity. Everybody in theory is supposed to be on a level playing field. So the skill ceilings of teams are different, but
well, I would add in there that hockey has spread and grown across the world. So the average talent level is much higher, and the depth of that talent level. So it's not like there are, even if you have a salary cap, or even if there is no salary cap, there were only so many superstar or star players to pay. And it's a beautiful thing that the game has grown to create its own parity this way. But it does come with pain. And part of the reason the Avalanche expectations are higher is because they did win that cup. That same feeling of joy and gratitude you have for being a winner also increases the expectation level when you look at this team and you're like, we still have our captain. We still have Kale. We still have Nate Dogg. You know, you look at the core tenets of this franchise and say they're still here. We have Nas back, right? All of these different things that say, why shouldn't it be 2022? This team, we know they can do it. We've seen them do it. Other teams, we think they can do it. They have all this talent. Like that's what the Carolina image is, right? That's what the Edmonton image is. But neither of them have won any time recently, not even remotely. Not anything with this construction have they hoisted a cup, whereas the Avalanche have. And so it's obvious with a double-edged sword of naturally increasing the expectation level because it has happened. It's known that it not only it could possibly in theory, but it has. And you know, that's where it goes even beyond the Sharks in some way. And I love my team, and I don't feel bad about taking these strays. It's the reality of the situation. Those teams were great in the regular season and should have won more than they did, but they didn't. And it sucks. It is what it is. At least I have Macklin Celebrini, so I have hope once again. But those were just a couple things I wanted to jump in and add, Corey, based on what we're saying here, because it's not unfounded, or it makes sense that the expectations are higher. And there's that added element, and I'm sure the players feel that way too. The one thing I'm wondering, I don't think you took Carolina's curse. Now I'm starting to be afraid that Brent Burns is cursed. One last thing before we get to the coaching, because, man, he made it to the Cup final with San Jose, right? And then we set him free not too long after that, right? He didn't make it there again. All those chances in Carolina, he comes over to the Avalanche. They make it to the conference final, fall short. Meanwhile, Carolina is looking like they're on their way to the Cup final. It sucks. Dude's 41. Nobody deserves a cup more than Brent Burns. The actual Iron Man of the NHL, and yet somehow, some way, just can't seem to make it there. And that's hockey.
Yeah.
Shit happens.
Yeah. And I mean, he's been on some absolutely incredible teams. You're right, though. Last point, I will force us to move on here because you're right. I just wanted to say I do like what you said, and I mean, you're right that I think one of the reasons why the expectation is higher is because they have done it. You're right. You're right. They've set that for themselves, and that the fact that they've reached that plateau proves that they can. And the fact that they haven't done it again is a little bit surprising. Even if they made it and lost, the fact that they haven't done it again is very surprising. So we will see what this off season brings. God, I did have one more.
And you were going to ask me about the coaching.
I know, but I did have one last thing that I wanted to say. About
totally go for it.
Vegas, but it's what was it that I wanted to say? You know what? It is exited.
It the Torts fact?
No, it is not. It was just something about the team as a whole, but it is left me, so it's fine. But Dom, I mean, with all this talk about Jared Bednar, some people are, saying fire him. Some people are saying it's not, it's really not on him that the Avalanche lost the series, which I think I agree with that more. But I mean, what do you ultimately think? Should the Avs fire him? What would you think if they did fire him? What's the thought there?
I would think it's a mistake if you fire him. You're not going to get better. The players want him, right? If you need to ride out with Jared Bednar with this crop of players until we're talking McKinnon and Makar, until we're talking rebuild, really, as this team is expected to be a contender until that point, until all of those players cycle out or are sent in a trade. If you just start shipping key pieces and trying to retool, then maybe. But the players want him to stay. And again, this team can do it with this coach. So yes, it hasn't worked these last 3 years, but also if you won once every 32 years, you would be average, right? That would be how numbers work. If it was all perfectly having perfect parity and perfect cycles, right? Every team would win once in a 32-year cycle, and that would be completely balanced parity. Now, we know it's not that way. Time span that the Sharks have been an entire franchise and won 0. And hockey coaches are on such a short lifespan, like 2 years, 3 years. Bad coaches in football are on a short lifespan where their team is just in the gutter and then doesn't get out of the gutter. But if you get up to a middle tier team, you can get 4 to 5 years. You win a championship in the NFL, just one, you're looking set for a decent amount of time, right? I think of Harbaugh for Baltimore in particular. Shout out Brenny. They won one time, but he was there for 15, 20 years. And nobody debates the fact that he's a great coach. And he already has his next job. But why is it that hockey coaches 3 years removed, 4 years removed from a cup win, suddenly we're talking they need to go? It doesn't make sense to me. I feel like this is one of those problems when we talk about the hockey culture. This is a different culture problem, and I don't know why it is, but I feel like it's an imperfect system. If we know rebuilds take time and we're patient with GMs and sometimes with coaches through rebuilds, why shouldn't we be patient with them in the successes when we have a proven formula and just know the numbers say it's hard to win more than once in a 5 or 10 year period, even if you are a great team? Then the statistics just say that. So I just don't quite understand fully the coaching carousel in the NHL, because you'll still have the same group of coaches that are just moving around. And you're right. Nathan McKinnon does not want to play against Jared Bednar. He wants to play for Jared Bednar. You send Jared Bednar, what is that going to do to Nathan McKinnon and this team? I don't think it helps, honestly. Whether or not you think he's a good coach or a bad coach or an okay coach, I don't think it helps this team. I must admit that in-game adjustments, whether it's his coaching or the player's execution, I think Tortorella did a better job this series. Not between games, The Avalanche did a good job of starting the following game a bit better, learning the lessons from the prior game, coming in with a plan. We saw that in game 3 in particular. But then they fell asleep for the second and third period. I don't know if that's Bednar's fault that he didn't readjust when Tortorella got his team to adjust, or if the players just sat on their heels. I feel like it's more of the latter. But the strongest thing in any sport that is a true X factor that you can't quantify by any statistic is belief. And Tortorella had his team believing. You see some of these clips from their locker room. They just believed that they were going to win, that they deserved to win. And then they went out there and did it. And that is why you could say that he didn't even have to do anything but instill belief in his players. And that you could argue meant he outcoached Bednar. But again, all this to say, I don't think Bednar is a bad coach. What I'm trying to say is when it comes to X's and O's, sometimes it doesn't matter when a team has that belief. And you run into that buzzsaw sometimes. And no amount of coaching or star power can get you through it, as we saw. You would think they would have won at least one game, and I don't think it's Jared Bednar's fault. The coaches catch flack for losses. If we say credit should go to the players when they win, credit should also sometimes a coach fails their team, but this isn't Bednar's fault. And I know I'm on a bit of a monologue here, and I'll wrap it up, but if the players if the ones on the ice are the ones who are doing the winning, who deserve the praise, they also deserve the burden of the defeat, not the coach. Why is it in victory we celebrate players and in defeat we criticize coaches? Right? I mean, yes, we criticize players, but it's always talk about the coach getting fired, and maybe one player here or there getting a lot of shit talk. And it's often warranted, Darnell Nurse being overpaid, for example. But it's not saying, hey, he needs to get fired. It's just saying, hey, your GM did a bad job. That's really a commentary on the GM at that point, not on Darnell Nurse even. So, again, I'm using an example there. I'll get off my soapbox, but I just think it's a little unfair to Jared Bednar. And to just restate my opinion, I think it would not be in the Avalanche's best interest to remove Bednar, because I think that would all but guarantee they do not win another cup with this crop of players.
Well, first of all, you reminded me of the thing that I wanted to say earlier in regards to Vegas, so thank you. You said star power, and that jogged my memory. I think by all accounts that the Avalanche had the better staff between the two teams on the ice, at the very least. I think Colorado had the better players. I think they had the deeper team. But what has always worked with Vegas, that's not to say they don't have fucking star players, man. That is not at all what I am saying. They very, very, very much do. But if you're asking anybody, would you rather have, Mitch Marner or Nathan MacKinnon? I think a good chunk of people, what they're going to say. They would say they'd rather have Nathan MacKinnon. And, a lot of people, would you rather have Shea Theodore or Cale Makar? You're going to say Cale Makar. But sometimes I think it's just about having the right mix of guys. And that's what I said, is Vegas just has the right mixture of guys. And I think where it's the most unacceptable is even if Colorado was destined to lose this series, it was the way in which they lost. That is the problem. The fact that you got swept when you definitely shouldn't have. So that's just really, that is a big kind of rewind back to the previous point. So, we're good now. So thank you, Dom, for jogging my memory there. Dom, we lost your audio during your soapbox moment. I'm very sorry. What Dom was trying to say was the Colorado Avalanche have won 3 cups in the entire existence of the Sharks, in the entire time the Sharks have been a team, where they have won 0. So that's what he was saying there. In terms of now going back to coaching, hitting on that point of culture, I really liked. And I truly and honestly believe, because obviously I've called things so correctly with this team before, I think it would take, because of the way that the NHL is, it would take a truly disastrous season, regular season, for I think the Avalanche to fire Jared Bednar. I really do. And I do think that there is some fair acknowledgement to why I think in past playoffs, where even when the Avalanche have come up short, why he hasn't been fired, because I think it has genuinely and honestly been due to factors that are out of Jared Bednar's control. Like, he didn't make the choice to send Mikko Rantanen away and then him ultimately end up in Dallas. Like, ooh, I don't want to get too into it, but I mean, hockey is an emotional game. It is a game of momentum, and sometimes you're on the bad end of that. And unfortunately, the Avalanche seem to always be on the fucking negative end of that. I don't know why, but I truly just, I mean, it's the probability is never zero, but I agree that I feel like Jared Bednar was failed more than he failed the team. And I just don't see him going right now. Now, again, if he did, I would really only want David Carl to come in. Truly and honestly, I think he is the best replacement that you could possibly get, not named Paul Maurice or John Cooper. Because I don't want anybody else. I don't want one of the fucking, 50 guys that we keep rotating between, because it's just fucking ridiculous. The NHL is such a fucking old boys club that we refuse to bring in any new talent and new coaches to take a crack to switch things up. Instead, it's like fucking Congress. We just keep hiring the same old farts over and over again to coach these teams. And somehow we're shocked when the results remain the same, or when the same controversies with these coaches happen over and over again, Mike Babcock. But we just refuse to bring in anybody new, which is why I think the Avalanche succeeded in the first place, because they actually did something by not bringing in some fucking one of the millions of coaches that we keep fucking bringing over and over again. Jared Bednar was a new coach to the NHL. And then he comes in the first season and they have the worst season they've ever had. And instead of firing him, they're like, you know what? We understand this is a rebuilding young team. We're going to give you another go at it. And then they keep going. Same thing with Montreal. Martin St. Louis was not a fucking NHL coach before he started coaching the youngest team in the NHL, but they've kept him around. And now look, this rebuilding young team is in the Eastern Conference fucking final. So it's crazy to me that this is not a page out of the playbook that more teams aren't taking. We're just convinced that somehow these same 50 guys have all the answers. Well, no, they don't. And the ones that do are still with their teams, winning Stanley Cups. And even the guys that were taking teams to the fucking finals, a la Chris Knobloch, are getting fired. He didn't deserve to get fucking fired. Stan Bowman deserves to get fired. But because they're the men in the high castle, they're never going to fire those guys. So, but I'm getting off on a completely different tangent. But I think I'm about ready to move on to my final few notes here, but I do want to give you some space to respond to anything else that I have said here, if you want to.
No, you're right. There are GMs that need to be fired more than their coaches. With how much the coach cycle is, I don't know why we have such a short lifespan for the coaches, and yet still the same
hired to be fired, they say.
Right, when we don't investigate the GMs is part of the problem. Like, yes, we're in the tank, and yet everybody knows GMMG is killing it, and this team is going to be goated here very soon. So there is you need to get some fresh eyes in there, trust the process a bit, darkest before the dawn, all of the classic overused phrases, right? But yeah, I don't get it. I do think younger is better. I liked your metaphor for that. I think there are a lot of good coaches who haven't really gotten a chance. The only rebuttal is, of course, the Torts example. And we haven't said the not so fun fact, but it seems like now is the time.
Go for it.
Because, I mean, what was it exactly? There have been 5 times in history that the President's Trophy champions have been swept. Was that what it was?
Yes.
And Tortorella has coached 2 of those teams that have done the sweeping of 5 in history. And again, it's not like he's out there on the ice. So is it a him stat? Is it just he has a way of making guys believe that they can be better than they are and that it's just a leader of men archetype? I don't know. Maybe that's something we'll have to dig into for another day. But I even so, it's worked for Vegas, and that's part of the problem, I think. And then we can move on. The fact that it has worked for Vegas is why teams are going to continue to cycle through coaches, because Bruce Cassidy won a cup with the Knights not long ago at all. And yet he was shown the door. And that's, I think, part of why the
shown the door after he
there.
led Boston to the most successful regular season of all time, mind you.
Right. So,
or wait, am I totally fucking stupid? Was that that was Jim Montgomery who did that? I'm sorry.
That was Montgomery, but
yes, Montgomery.
I understood what you were going for.
Montgomery came in after, but then Montgomery was fired. So the point still remains.
Exactly. Montgomery fired even after what he did. The fact that Cassidy taking the Knights to the Cup, fired. That. The fact that it is working right now for Vegas is problematic, or why GMs will feel justified in doing that. But do I think Craig Berube is going to get a team to a cup again? And yet he's probably going to get one of the jobs in Canada, or hold on to his current job in Canada. Some of these guys have a way of doing that and winning and then getting fired. And then GMs will use it as an excuse, or other old coaches will say, hey, I can do that still. Like, I haven't, but I can. Or last time I did it was ages ago, but I can. And because one guy does it, then they all have an excuse to stay instead of getting younger. So I'm with you there, and we can move on at whenever you would like.
Yeah. So moving on now, here are some final notes for the Avalanche, and then we'll talk about something else. I don't know if this is going to be a long episode today. It probably won't, but knowing me and Dom and how much we ramble, it probably will. So who knows? But we're just going to keep going and see what happens. We do not have the Avalanche injury report yet. I can imagine that when it comes out, it will be fairly extensive, just based on what I knew going into this series. But Cale Makar's shoulder injury is said to be so severe that it could possibly sideline him going into the start of next season. So the fact that he came and played 2 games in the Western Conference Final is impressive and just shows the kind of warriors that hockey players are. But that just tells you how bad it was. And that is unfortunate. And, fuck the Foligno brother that did it to him. But, that's just how the playoffs go. And that's just the sports. On a semi more positive note, keep an eye out on TJ Hughes, who has been thrust to the top of the Avalanche's top prospects list. He is very much expected to fight for a roster spot next season. And I think with the departure of possibly a Yoel Kiviranta, maybe a Jack Drury or Nicholas Wall, which we hope obviously not, but I do think there will be a small to mid amount of turnover here, that the Avalanche might have room for some of these young guys to come in and maybe make a name for himself. Hughes is pretty highly touted and was one of the best college free agents that was available. So, I mean, the fact that the Avalanche, as we've mentioned before, don't have these draft picks, but are still finding ways to, I think, sign quality players to keep their prospect pool alive. They are no longer the bottom of the prospect pools, which is absolutely great, because they keep making these smart signings. So keep an eye out, particularly on TJ Hughes, as well as DeMarsico. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out in training camp in September. It should be an interesting one. Obviously, the season will start sooner this next year due to the new CBA and the 84 game schedule. So I'm assuming training camp will start sooner, but we don't have to get into that right now. Final piece of news, unfortunately, on a tragic note, we learned this morning, of the passing of former Montreal Canadian, New Jersey Devil, Dallas Star, player for many teams and great player at that, 4-time Stanley Cup champion Claude Lemieux. And I found that very shocking because, one, he was only 60 years old, and he 3 days ago carried the torch out for Montreal, where he received a standing ovation prior to the game. And to me, he looked very healthy, but I thought maybe something had been going on and that it was an underlying health issue that was maybe easy to hide. But tragically, that was not the case. And we learned later today that his death was due to suicide. And that just, to me, I think always reminds us to check on those around you, because you never know what somebody is going through. And I'll let Dom say it himself as well, but I mean, same to strangers, as hard as it can be sometimes when other people treat you wrong, you don't know what somebody else is going through. But Dom, please correct me if I am wrong, but if you ever feel like you are in need of someone to talk to and no one is close by, you can dial 988. That is the hotline. I believe either the suicide prevention hotline or just the mental health crisis hotline that you can call, and it is a resource that is available for you. But don't ever be afraid, man, woman, however you identify, please do not ever be afraid to talk about your mental health, no matter what anybody else tells you, no matter what somebody says to you. You are better here than you are not. And I mean that. Even if I don't know you, even if you are listening to this as a random person, I mean that. And check on your teammates, everybody.
Yeah. First thing, you are correct. 988, Corey. That is a hotline number. There are plenty of free resources online. Just a Google search away. But please just always answer the phone if people call you, reaching out. You never know when someone just needs a friend to pick up when they're having a moment of struggle. It's always devastating when anybody passes, but especially when they feel so alone and isolated that they feel that they no longer have an earthly value. And you are enough. To all of you out there, you are enough. No matter how few are listening, I hope you pass this message along that wherever you are, no matter what you're going through in life, it's okay to not be okay. And it's just important that you're here. Knowing you, love you. We love all the humans on this planet for being here, because you are part of so many lives in someone's story, and you bring that to others. And there are so many people a part of your story too, even if it doesn't feel like it. And that's why, like I said, it goes for strangers too. Just like you said, Corey, you never know what somebody's going through. So you get cut off in traffic and something's irritating you, you're having a bad day. I just would encourage you to pause, think a moment, and realize that it might not be about you, that there could be something going on for someone else. We never really know what people are going through. So why not give them the benefit of the doubt, and choose kindness? You never know how a random act of kindness, complimenting someone, just having a smile on your face and saying good morning, can have a positive impact on someone. Do know that no matter what, smiling and being kind won't hurt somebody. So I would just encourage you to do that, and to walk your life being kind to your own mind and to others. And if you're ever struggling, as if you can't reach anybody, I know it's dumb, but you can always send an email to us, to our podcast line that Corey has plugged before. Like, we care. Even if we don't know you, we care and we believe in you. And sometimes that's all any of us needs, is just someone to tell us that we're here and we need to be here. We have this one life to live. and we want everyone to get to live that to the fullest and to the maximum of whatever it is they do in this lifetime. It's worth it. It's life is a beautiful, magical thing, and I know I'm here rambling, but this this is a such a very deep and important topic that I think sometimes doesn't receive the right media attention or enough media attention, and I would hate for us to be part of that cycle. So just call a friend, reach out to them, and just check in on how they're doing. Because best case scenario, they're perfectly fine, and they'll just be happy to hear your voice. And if it's a worst case, you might save their life without even doing anything other than saying hello, how you doing?
Yeah, Dom actually beat me to it. I was going to say pick up because he said, answer the phone, but I was also going to say pick up the phone and call them. Dom has called me on multiple occasions whenever I'm like, hey, I'm going through it right now. He's like, no need to fear. And he'll pick up the phone and call me. And Dad, to your other point, I actually have had a friend. I don't know if he's listening to this. I don't know if he's listened to the show in a while, but if he does, he knows who he is, where he sometimes has just kind of called me randomly just to check in on me, see how I'm doing. So, it's a little thing. Whether the time is good or not, I certainly always appreciate it because sometimes some days are good, some days are bad. So I definitely always appreciate having that support around me. And I think sometimes, and I'm not saying that, all genders and sexes don't go through this, but I think especially as a man, sometimes depending on who you listen to, who you look at, you're told to suppress your feelings. Don't talk about them. Don't quote unquote show weakness, but it's not weakness. It is not weakness ever to talk about how you're feeling. I can't not talk about how I'm feeling. That's why I host a fucking 2-hour show a week to talk about how I'm feeling about my favorite thing in the entire world. But that extends to all things, especially your mental health. So please, 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 I literally will get on my knees and beg you, please speak up for yourself if you are not okay. I did want to share just Joe Sakic's words on Claude Lemieux before we move on here, and that is as follows. Quote, we are devastated to learn of Claude's passing. Pepe was a terrific hockey player, a fierce competitor, and a champion in every way. He was also a loyal friend who would do anything for his teammates and someone you could always count on. Most importantly, he was a wonderful family man, and there was nothing he enjoyed more than spending time with his grandchildren. Today is a very sad day for the Avalanche family, and Claude will be greatly missed by all of us who had the privilege of knowing him. On behalf of the entire Avalanche organization, we send our love and prayers to Deborah and the Lemieux family. Gone but never forgotten. Rest in peace, my friend. Another anecdote I wanted to share also was from Darren McCarty, and just to give the quickest lore dump of all time, Darren McCarty was a member of the Red Wings who was present when Claude Lemieux hit Chris Draper into the boards. That led to Chris Draper's terrible injury. And Darren McCarty and Claude Lemieux shared a pretty bitter rivalry after that and got into many, heated exchanges, many fights, and even ones that escalated off the ice. And at one point, and I am going to paraphrase this a bit because I don't have the exact story up in front of me, but Darren was playing for the Dallas Stars, or no, I'm sorry, excuse me. Lemieux was playing for the Dallas Stars in 2002, 2003, and came over to Darren, who had just started to get clean from substance abuse. And he skated over to Darren. And at first, Darren looked at him with some harshness and said, what the fuck do you want? You want to have another go, thinking that Lemieux was coming over to goad him for a fight. But Lemieux said instead, I just wanted to come over and say hello and say how happy I am for you with where you're at in life right now. I'm glad to see that you're doing well. And McCarty said that his point of view on Lemieux changed forever that day. So whether you agree with some of the things Lemieux did off the or on the ice or not, there was clearly still, I think, somebody who had a lot of care in his heart for teammates that weren't even his. So once again, check on your teammates. And as Joe Sakic said, our hearts go out to his family and, of course, the wider hockey community that had the chance to know him. I did get to see him speak live, reflecting on the 96 and 2001 Cup wins earlier this year. And I'm, I guess, really grateful that I got the chance to be a part of that. Obviously, I didn't get the chance to meet him, but I do sadly and somberly reflect on the fact that they interviewed him, I think, before the game that he also came out and stood around the Stanley Cup that they were remembering, I think, the 01 team, or the 96 team, I'm sorry. And he was talking about teammates that weren't there anymore and how grateful he was to still be one of the people that was there. So it's very sad that he ended up being now one of the teammates who's not here anymore. So one more time, check on your teammates, everybody.
And again, if you are that teammate, we don't know who all is listening or who might hear this in the future. So if you are that teammate who is struggling, just please know that you matter. And no matter how much that struggle is, the world is a better place just because you are in it.
Absolutely. We are now going to change gears here. It's always hard when you're moving on from a somber or tragic topic. We are definitely not ones to shy away from it here on the Captain Avalanche Fancast, or the uncomfortable topics as well. But man, I still to this day have not figured out a good way to transition to the next talking point other than to awkwardly kind of verbally dance along to the next thing.
I have a transition for you.
Okay, Dom, what do you got?
After going to the lows of our sombriety, I guess it's nowhere near as deep or as sad, but Canada does feel like they're rather depressed right now, and the end of their cup hopes for another year might be near.
You're right, Dom. So let's talk about the concept of control.
Chaos control.
Control. The thing that the Avalanche lost and could never get back, and the thing that Carolina firmly has. It seemed from game one that this might be a very competitive series, that Montreal might scrap its way to another game 7 against a mighty opponent and might just push their way to another final. That was all an illusion. The rink rust was real for Carolina, but it got shaken off very quickly. And from game 2 on, Carolina grabbed Montreal by their proverbial hockey pucks by, well, never letting them touch the hockey puck. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but Montreal fans are literally begging their team to put the puck on the net, but they legitimately can't. Every time Montreal attempts a breakout, they're either stopped in the neutral zone, and if they make it to Carolina's zone, the Canes force a turnover. Look no further than the shot differential. Dom, you have this stat for me.
Oh, yeah. In this series, would you believe it, all of you listeners? I know Corey would because I already told him. That the Canadians have been outshot, and that shots on goal, 136-65. That's right. The Carolina Hurricanes have outshot the Montreal Canadiens by more than double in the 4 games of this series thus far.
And to go ahead and give you all an idea on the most recent games here where it's been particularly egregious, we will go into, if I can get it open here.
I have the stat on third period shots for Montreal as
well.
No,
I want specifically game 3 and 4 here. I'm just okay. Hold. Here we go. Game 3. Montreal ended up having, oh my God, I'm terrible at my job. Montreal had 13 shots in game 3 to Carolina's 39. Yes, the game went to overtime, but there was no chance Montreal was going to win that game. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that was, oh no, that is correct. And then in game 4, It was even worse, really, because Carolina had 43 shots and Montreal had 18. That's not a winning recipe. Thankfully for Montreal, Jakub Dovish had a .929 save percentage. And in this series has, I can get this number. Wait, nope. Hold on. Gotta go back one or two here. Has a .919 save percentage in this series. We will talk about him in just a second. Which is funny because Freddie Anderson only has a .859 save percentage. That first game really tanked it, but when you're not having to make any fucking saves, I guess I can see why it would be relatively worse. In Wednesday's contest, Montreal's first shot of the third period didn't occur until 2:53 remaining. As in, that is how much time they had left. Not how much time had elapsed, how much time they had left. The Canes, while not scoring a ton of goals, don't need to. As I mentioned in my pre-series breakdown and analysis, and Freddie Anderson has also answered the call when needed, which is very rare. The other reason the Canes aren't scoring as heavily is because of Dobish. He is the only shining light in Montreal's corner. With the way the Canes defend and shot suppress, a final against the Knights is going to be 1-0, 2-1 games every fucking time. Quintuple, septuple fucking overtime. It's going to be insanely grindy and a likely boring final. But the Canes truly do exhibit full control over every aspect of the game. Yes, Montreal has forced OT off of the few rush plays they can manage. They have the talent to score, but you know the Canes are likely going to win anyways just due to the fact that they can hem Montreal in their own D zone multiple shifts in a row. Multiple Montreal Canadiens players in Game 4, for example, had over 2-minute shifts where they were trapped in their own zone. It goes beyond just getting cycled to death. Even if Montreal got a hold of the puck, the Canes could just keep it in regardless and continue to cycle. I cannot imagine this series goes another game. The only hope Montreal has is their road play, and even then, you're only forcing it to 6. Dobish absolutely has the ability to steal this team a game, and stopping over 35 shots is a feat, but he can only do so much. Not only can Montreal not play in the Cane zone, they can't play in their own either. They quite simply looked outmatched in every capacity. The advantage for them is they weren't expected to make it this far anyways. They've already exceeded expectations and will likely be making significantly deeper runs in the future. Not to mention, they won one more game than the Avalanche did. The other thing is that Montreal is beating themselves. They are so incredibly undisciplined. You can look at it across this entire series, but they do not have the fine art of getting under their opponent's skin and not getting penalized like Florida does. There is genuinely an art to it. Instead, they're fucking pile driving the Canes' heads into the ground. Literally, you can't do that, and they're getting called on it every time. When you know you're not getting away with it, quit being stupid. The fact that they can't even get shots on goal 5-on-5 means if you're going down 5-on-4, you're probably not going to get any shots on goal then either. So they have not done themselves any kinds of favors in this series whatsoever. I would say it's disappointing, but I guess the only disappointing part is that Montreal, I think, has more offensive talent than they've shown. But I mean, the Canes' system is just their absolute foil, the perfect counter. It is eating them alive in every aspect. Now, what do you think?
Defense wins championships.
Certainly.
That is the storyline of this playoffs, right? When you see Vegas and how they played. And obviously, I think Carolina's an even better version of that. Yeah, I agree. We might see the record for the most overtime minutes or just the most minutes in a series in a cup final in history. I would not be surprised if every single game went to multiple overtimes with how these two teams want to play the hockey game. We could be mistaken, but feels very much based on what we've seen in these rounds so far. Montreal should be grateful that they didn't get swept. I think if the Canes aren't on, 12 days of rust, they do get swept. I feel bad for Dobish because he's been playing lights out and wasn't able to be everywhere on the ice to get a win on his birthday in game 4, just absolutely let down by the team in the home barn, no less. But man, is he going to be really something of a goaltender? He's going to be good for a long time. We've talked about it, but yeah, this is what the Canes do, though. We talked about them in last season of recording, but also you and I prior, Corey, have talked about the depth of their defense and how that asset and that system that they have, it's swarming in shadow coverage. It really is a top tier defense for all of you football fans. Imagine having Pat Surtain and then put maybe like Richard Sherman and some Legion of Boom style defense and merge them together and just say, we're going to lock you down and you can't do shit. Good luck. Try and beat us. We don't even have to score points. All we need to get is 1, and then we can play our game. And even when Montreal has had leads, the Canes are just the better team. And when you possess the puck as much as they do, you're going to get your shot opportunities. I mean, we talked about the shot differential too. It's not like the Canes are all defense. They just are using defense to set up their offense. Montreal has a lot of these skill players, but like you said, Corey, not as experienced. So they're trying to win on talent alone. You don't have enough talent to win on talent alone. If you know the quote, if you know, you know.
Miracle. I know what you're doing.
I'm just going to leave it there because I don't think I could say it any better than Coach Brooks.
Yeah, I just totally, in a weird way, I am kind of glad to see it actually just working for them for once. Like this strategy that they've been employing all these years, I'm glad to see it finally working in the way that it should. But I think, think about when the Avalanche won their Stanley Cup, the teams that they didn't have to face. They didn't have to play Dallas. They didn't have to play Vegas. Same thing with the Hurricanes this year. They didn't have to play any of the Florida teams, Tampa nor the Panthers. And then they didn't have to play the Rangers, the teams that consistently knock them out year after year. They didn't have to play those teams. So realistically, looking at it, there is no better time than right now for the Hurricanes to seize that Stanley Cup, to be totally honest with you. And for everybody wondering, we sure as shit are going to support our disaster bros if they go on to the Cup final here. So it doesn't matter if it's Montreal or if it's the Hurricanes, although I think the Hurricanes have a significantly better chance against the Knights considering how well they played Montreal, because Vegas has a very similar system right now. So let's go Carolina, please. If you're gonna win, please God, just go into the final and just sweep Vegas so we don't have to stare at them for very long.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's unfortunate. There is this media message about how this series would be boring and maybe low ratings. We've had this highest.
It's the bad ending. I can't lie. Of the four options, this is the bad ending.
And I will disagree. I think this is quintessential team-based hockey, and where mistakes get you in trouble, and you have to play not a flashy, exciting game, but play well. And who can play at the highest level the most consistently. The best, most nerve-wracking hockey is when it is the thinnest of margins and it is close. And so, yeah, maybe are there going to be less goals? Maybe, but we don't know for certain. Marner's leading the playoffs in points, right? Carolina's firing shots left, right, and center. It's too early to assume that this series is going to be bad. I encourage you all to watch. And yes, I'm not saying
watch it. That doesn't mean I have to like it, Tom.
Well, sure, but I'm gonna with you be rooting for Carolina. I can't like Vegas being there, period. But maybe it's just because I like defense and I know I'm in the minority here, but I'm looking forward to that series in some regard because I do think it's going to be a real chess match. And I think that's something that we don't always get to see. So for me, I think it's cool. I understand and I completely validate the perspective of why this is the bad outcome. Obviously, we don't have the Avalanche there, so no outcome really is a good outcome. But I don't know. I'm intrigued. So before you write this off and everyone listen or feel like negative, give it a chance. Don't hate on it. Don't judge it. Carolina hasn't been there, so we have no idea what to do, right? You can't say you don't like something until you've tried it. So don't be hating on this potential series before you've watched a single game of it. Then I'll accept the negative commentary.
Listen, Dom, just because you have good defense does not mean you cannot also have potent offense. The Avalanche did that every fucking game of the year, except for, the ones when it mattered. But they're the highest scoring team and the lowest allowing team. So you can have both. Ooga booga. That's my counterpoint to you. And the reason it's the bad ending is because you get the NHL's villain that literally is the most hated team in the league, scientifically so, versus the most boring team in the league. Everybody knows that the Canes play a boring style of hockey. It's an effective style of hockey, as we have seen, as you have noted, but it's boring. So you get the worst villains versus the most boring style of hockey. That is why it is the bad ending versus the predictable ending, which was going to be the Avalanche versus the Hurricanes, which, half of that is true, but it just didn't end up working out. The surprise ending would have been Vegas versus Montreal, but that didn't end up, or that's probably not going to happen. And then the best ending would have been the Avalanche versus Montreal. Old versus new, and it would have been fun because it's two potent offenses flying back and forth, shooting on each other. That would have been exciting fucking hockey. But it's fine because we're going to watch it and we're going to grumble and piss and moan about it anyway. Thank God this shit's almost over. For those wondering, the latest that the Stanley Cup final can start is June 2nd, I believe, or maybe it was June 4th. Either way, it starts next week, and I'm anticipating that it's going to start sooner rather than later. We'll know after tomorrow. Madame.
Any series, depending on when it starts, will end, even if it goes 7 games, by June 20th at the absolute latest.
Yeah. And we ultimately still want to bring you some of the content that you expect. So if you thought this was all we had for you, think again, fuckers. As we've done for the last couple of weeks, Dom is going to bring you some IIHF news and predictions as we actually now near the closing of the tournament. I have my own things to add, but I will add those at the end.
Yeah, well, I am happy to bring some IIHF updates because we have officially reached the knockout stages and have results for the quarterfinals as of today. So before going there, though, I'm going to rewind and give you an update on how we got here or what the teams are that made it to the quarterfinals. And firstly, the U.S. did beat Austria 4-1, so they secured the transfer spot, the number 4 seed from their group. Switzerland and Finland matched up, both undefeated, and Switzerland got the 4-2 victory once again at home, 7-0-0-0. Thus far, they have been dominant, the Swiss team has in their pool. So they got the number 1 seed in the group. That meant that they were destined for a matchup with the why am I forgetting? Oh, with the Swedes. Why was I forgetting? Because I was trying to cue myself up to mention it, and I just spoiled the fun because bad Dom. Sweden actually in the final game of pool play for both teams got a 4-2 victory themselves over Slovakia. So after Slovakia had been holding a spot for a while, that ultimately meant that they did not make it into the knockout stages, and Sweden rallied from being behind and possibly not making it to reach the quarterfinals. And finally, Canada versus Czechia. That was a game that I think we were all tracking. The Czechs were up 2-0, but there's this cool kid, you might have heard of him, named Macklin Celebrini, scores 2 goals. The Canadians come back from down 2 to win 3-2 and finish the top of their group as well. And other games that day, Latvia scored 8 against Hungary, so they poured it on. And Norway got an overtime victory over Denmark, which meant that they were the 2 seed from their pool. And why that matters is with the matchups in the quarterfinals, we had Finland versus Czechia, Switzerland versus Sweden, Canada versus the US, which I talked about being a possibility, and Norway versus Latvia. So what better chance for Norway to get another win than versus Latvia? And for those quarterfinals, Corey can vouch, I did send predictions and do a whole bracket. Of course, that was before I realized they would reseed after the quarterfinals, so the rest of my bracket makes no sense. So I'm just going to tell you what my predictions were and whether or not I was right. So starting in the early games, Canada absolutely waxed the U.S., and we all knew it was going to happen. They won 4-0. Not so fun fact for all of you American fans, fun fact for you Canadian fans. The last time Team Canada shut out Team USA after the preliminary round, so quarterfinals or further, in an IIHF Men's Worlds, 1950. So what is that? 76 years. Streak is broken, and Macklin Celebrini, he scored the game-winning goal, as it were, by just firing home an absolute piss missile. So loved watching that. And Sidney Crosby got the empty net goal at the end, so he finally has a goal on the board. Yay! He talking after the game, he said he was quoted saying it's about time, as what he was saying to Macklin. So that was just a little funny interaction I wanted to add there. Corey, before I continue, pause there because Canada versus the USA, and I know you will want to celebrate.
Just bringing real quickly back to the Swedes. I just wanted to say, I think you sent me the clip, but fuck, Ivar Stenberg is so nasty. This kid's gonna be a demon in this league. Oh my God. I don't think people understand the level of talent that we have coming into this league. And this is why I will genuinely forever and ever make fun of old heads that are like, well, hockey's such a soft sport now because dudes aren't skating around chucking elbows who can't actually shoot the fucking puck. And or basically, you had one guy on the team who actually could skate and fucking shoot the puck, and then everybody else was a fucking pile on there to fight. But man, just even fourth liners are talented as shit now. I'm telling you, man, just this next year's draft class, it's going to be so fun because there's no guarantee that Gavin McKenna is going first, and then no guarantee Ivar Stenberg is going second, and yet they're so nasty, both of them. But then you got Malhotra and Chase Reed and all these amazing players. That's like, well, shit, man, if we could have all of them, we would, but you can only get one of them. So there's going to be some game changers coming into the league this next year, as well as after that, because then you have DuPont who's coming in. So there are some really talented kids coming into the league. And I think that just means that the lowest bar is just it's being raised that we can expect going forward into the future. And I think it's exciting. I love seeing these kids. I went on a bit of a tangent there, but just wanted to shout out Stenberg because, man, he's been crazy for the Swedes at this tournament.
Oh, I'm glad you did because, again, the Swedes did not have a great tournament, but he certainly did, and there's talk he will. Now there are scouts that are actively considering him, whether or not he should go number 1 overall. Hoping he doesn't, and it's pretty much settled the debate. I know we need defense, but again, best player available. That's been Mike Greer's MO. Let's get an NHL proven defenseman. We're ready to start contending now. Let's not wait for a defenseman to develop. Let's just go get this guy. Please. GMMG. I know you're open to trading the pick because that's what you say because you're an awesome GM. Please take Stenberg if he's there.
Here.
That's my PSA.
Here's a quick fun fact for you. The last time a first overall pick was traded was in 2003 by the Florida Panthers. Do you know who was selected first overall that year? If you don't, I can give you progressive hints until you.
I would need progressive hints. 2003.
All right, 2003. The pick was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, are we talking
That's tragic because right as you said that, you cut out. You've had some bad connection tonight, my friend, but who did you have a guess?
I couldn't even see it on my end.
Did you have a guess? Are we talking who, Dom?
I said, are we talking Sydney was the first one, then I paused, and then I said, or are we talking Gino?
Nope, wrong on both counts.
Oh, Flower?
Yes, Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, he's worth a first overall pick.
Oh, yeah. You know, one of the best goaltenders in fucking NHL history, inarguably a first ballot Hall of Famer. 3 Stanley Cups, multiple Vezinas, Jennings trophies. Yeah, I think so. Second most wins all time. So yeah, I think he's worth it. But anyway, Dom, Canada versus the U.S.
Oh yeah, well we've pretty much wrapped up Canada versus the U.S. Maclin's awesome. This U.S. team
ignore
sucked.
me. That
Kachuk
okay.
took a dive, and then the ref said, "Come on, you're better than that." And clearly he's
not. That was
not.
the context to that. That's so funny.
Yeah, that was the context. I think I said that to you earlier.
Yeah, you did. That's why I was like, I wonder, like, I didn't know what was happening in the clip, but now I get it. But okay, then yes, you reminded me. I want to insert this now. The Lindgren hit on Bouchard. I'm not a Bouchard fan by any means. In fact, I'm a certified Bouchard hater. That does not mean I want to see the man get injured. And the fact that Ryan Lindgren went out of his way to check him in the head and knocked him out on his feet. What the fuck are we doing, dude? Like, you shouldn't be doing it anyway. But at a tournament like this, like, yes, it's still a world tournament. You should be playing as hard as you can. But are you fucking kidding me? Like, what a fucking loser. Genuinely. And, you know, that kind of head contact, it needs to be taken fucking seriously. And I mean, it wasn't back in the fucking 80s and 90s. And I mean, obviously before that, but 80s and 90s where, you know, Paul Correa takes a hit, doesn't remember the next 3 days. And those kinds of things can have consequences later down the line. You know, again, God rest his soul, Claude Lemieux. So I just think it's such a scummy thing to do. The hit did not look good from any fucking angle, in full speed or in slow motion. It was brutal and unnecessary.
And he's forgetting that as a member of the Kraken, he's going to see the Oilers 4 times next year. You think they aren't going to be hunting for his head?
Shit. I hope they don't give him head contact in return, but I hope they beat his ass.
Oh, I just think Darnell Nurse is going to run into him, and based on how big Darnell Nurse is, head contact's going to happen. No avoiding it. Like, it's not going to be intentional. It's just going to be, I'm bigger than you, and I'm going to smash you into the wall, and whatever I hit, I hit. And, you know, when you aim for the head, I'm sorry, all bets are off. You get your karma and you get what's coming to you. I'm not rooting for an injury, but I'm certainly not going to get in the way of one either. I step to the side and say, you did this to yourself, bud. Because it's dirty. It belongs nowhere in this game. And you're affecting someone's long-term health, not only just potentially, but in all likelihood, with the CTE and everything we know now, and their livelihood. And that's just, especially when you're playing for country and you're supposed to be playing with pride, bad look. Really embarrassing.
It is.
Disappointing.
It is incredibly, incredibly embarrassing. But with kind of the whole world hockey, I don't know the full details. It was just a small post from Puck Empire, but from what I am seeing, it looks like the ban on Russian hockey has been rescinded going into 2027. I'm not, taking a viewpoint on it one way or another at this point. I'm just stating it because it's something that I saw that happened. So I don't know necessarily what that means for the Olympics. I don't know what it means for the World Cup of Hockey at this current moment in time. I know Belarus minus the U20 team is now going to be allowed to compete as well. So I guess we'll just see what happens here.
Yeah, I won't go into it too deeply. I believe it's being reevaluated So Russia is not by any means committed to playing, but it does seem like the door is open for that possibility. Again, whether or not you feel what you feel, I'm not going to go into what I feel. What I feel is you can't have best on best hockey without the Russians. There's too much talent coming from that country. So true best on best hockey does not exist without them in the tournament. Again, that's just, for me, it's a statement of fact and not anything about an opinion whether or not they should be there one way or the other.
But just wanted to bring that news to those who care. Tom, anything else about IIHF?
Oh, we've got plenty. We've only gone through one of those quarterfinal matches. So
my bad.
You mentioned Sweden.
Yeah.
Sweden and Switzerland. Switzerland is now 8-0. They're still undefeated after a 3-1 victory earlier today, actually. Although yesterday, when you're listening to this, and I had a fun fact from a few days back, when we were still in group play, when Roman Josi set the record for the fastest 3-goal hat trick in IIHF World Men's World history, scoring 3 goals in 4 minutes and 45 seconds versus Hungary. So while Hungary did not get relegated, they were on the bad end of some lopsided defeats multiple times in this tournament.
I guess they weren't hungry enough. Okay.
So anyway, Switzerland's run of dominance continues, and with reseeding, they are the number 1 seed. Canada is the number 2. But let's get to the other matchups on who their opponents would be. So Finland versus Czechia. So far, I was 2-0 in predicting how those matchups would go. And this is where my streak fell apart, because I did think that this Finnish team, being a little weaker compared to their standard, that maybe the Czechs would pull this one out. They did not. Finland really was controlling this game pretty much wire to wire in a 4-1 victory. And I probably should have seen it coming. I mean, it took an undefeated Switzerland to beat an undefeated Finland. So clearly I was just giving Finland and Switzerland a little bit of, hey, your group's weaker. Czechia had to deal with some tougher opponents, and turns out those might have been true statements. And finally, we have the most endearing matchup between Norway and Latvia. Really can't go wrong having either of these teams reach the medal round, but Norway continues marching on. Fun fact number lost count. They have now guaranteed their best finish in their history since being promoted to the top level of IIHF Worlds in 2005. Previously, their best finish was 6th in 2011, where they made the quarterfinals but lost. So this is their first time reaching the semifinals in the history since being promoted. This team has been on a roll. It was a 2-0 victory over Latvia today, and I'd honestly love to see him continue rolling onwards. However, there's one problem with that, Corey, and based on the reseeding, they run into Switzerland, the Norwegians do. So I'm afraid their run might end here. And in the other game, Canada versus Finland, I really do think we're going to see a Switzerland v. Canada gold medal game here. It feels like it's been on that path ever since the start. But again, this Finnish team is maybe better than I gave them credit for, and the Norwegians have been the underdog story of the tournament. So really, these last couple of games are going to be exciting either way. Hopefully, they'll be available on NHL Network, or you can watch them on IIHF.tv. If you log in online, hopefully it'll be free on the 30th and the 31st of May.
Yes, we will hope that people are able to actually view it.
But yeah, super happy for Norway making it this far. Honestly, happy to see a bad U.S. team get eliminated the way they did, and Canada get some redemption. And, it's hard because Switzerland and Norway are the best stories, and they have to go up against each other. But also, it's not going to matter because Macklin Celebrini.
Yes, that guy.
But I think that wraps it up. Right. Yeah, he's a pretty cool cat.
He's okay. He's just okay at hockey.
Yeah, I mean, what do we know?
Yeah, exactly. But okay.
But yeah, that's everything I got.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit different. Last year we did 3 Avalanche players of the year, and I just did, I think, anybody that I kind of felt like, although maybe I did it in the same format, just less official. But now that the season is unfortunately officially over for the Avalanche, I just wanted to recognize 3 particular players for the Avalanche. So I have a goalie, a defenseman, and a forward from the team. So without further ado, in the goalie spot, definitely want to give an honorable mention to Trent Miner. Didn't get a lot of playing time, but he was always really solid whenever he got the chance to come up. If in the future it was a tandem of Miner and Nabokov, honestly, I think that would be solid as fuck. Depending on how Nabokov ends up coming out here now that he's in the US. So we will wait and see. But Miner always looked good. But obviously, I have to give this spot to Scott Wedgwood, who ended the year with the best goals against and highest save percentage. Despite being a career backup, he really established himself as somebody who can play. He stepped in multiple times when Blackwood went down with injury. Do I expect more out of Blackwood next season? Yes, I do. Hopefully he can keep a clean bill of health going forward. But it was nice to always be able to rely on Wedgwood when you needed to. And I mean, by all accounts, he was always great. I'm glad he's sticking around for another year. I love the guy. I will be very, very, very sad the day that he is not with this team anymore. But I mean, all the flowers in the world to him. It is my goal and my dream to have him on this show. I will make it happen some way, somehow, everybody. I love Scott Wedgwood. He is an A+ human being on and off the ice. So Scott Wedgwood for your goalie. As for your defenseman, for me, obviously Brent Burns is an obvious contender for this spot. But I got to give it to Sam Malinsky, who I think as a college free agent, you know, he is absolutely somebody who in every sense of the word has earned his spot and earned his place in the NHL. He earned the extension that he got. I'm once again very glad that he will be on this team for the foreseeable future as the window remains open for this team to contend. He has stepped up to the challenge every time he's been presented to it when he needed to elevate his game. Every single year, he seems to get better and better, and this year was no exception with him taking, I think, the biggest step that he possibly could. So I really just have to give it to Sam Malinsky. He was great this year. Obviously battled through some injuries himself, but he was fantastic. And finally, your forward, who else would it be but Parker Kelly? This guy, I was in the Avalanche store. John remembers this. They restocked on jerseys, and one of the jerseys that they had was Parker Kelly's. And, you know, it's like, why would they have a fourth liner? It is because this dude is absolutely adored by the fans of the Colorado Avalanche, and why wouldn't he be? He is super chatty. He is super energetic. He is super engaged. He always seems like he wants to talk to people. He is super kind as well. And I mean, he was an absolute dog this year. He did everything you could possibly want from a player, was physical, scrappy, blocked shots, and then he went out there and scored 20 fucking goals. What an absolute gamer. Not to mention, he helped conservation efforts to save the whales. I will get the link for everybody. I will find it in the description, but I just want to make sure it's a legitimate one. But you can buy a t-shirt. It is for him and his wife. It is basically a t-shirt for the Parker Kelly, I think, whale watching club. And the proceeds of which go directly to whale conservation efforts. So if that is something that you care about, you can buy a shirt. I definitely want to when I get some extra expendable income, because it is always a good cause. And I love Parker Kelly, so you can't go wrong there. But I just have to shout out Parker Kelly, who's also, I think, an A+ human being on and off the ice. Also somebody that I really want to figure out a way to get them on this show. And maybe I'll just politely get on my knees over Instagram or something. But Gotta shout out Parker Kelly.
Absolutely. The PK, who is a PK machine as well.
Was best PKer by far, besides maybe Logan O'Connor when he came back.
But just such a humble dude, like you said, such a kind and caring, genuine human being outside of hockey. So why nothing to not love, appreciate, and support there. The right type of culture guy who's good for any locker room and a blessing to the Avalanche to be in theirs.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you don't normally see multi-year extensions go out to a fourth line guy. Like Yoel Kiviranta has gotten 2 1 years with the Avalanche, and I would assume wherever he goes next, it's also going to be a 1 year because that's just the kind of player that he is. But doesn't mean he's a bad player. Just that's what his role is in the NHL. But obviously the Avalanche rightfully signed Parker Kelly to a multi-year extension. He has earned it. Glad that he will be here. He was such a diamond in the rough pickup who nobody knew who he was coming from the Senators. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this dude is amazing. So he is well loved by the fan base and for good fucking reason. So love you, Parker. If you ever hear this, please come on this show because I'd want to talk to you for hours on end. All right, everybody. We still ended up going long. Look at us go. I knew that's what would happen. But we are on to our fun fact, and this week's fun fact is brought to you by Dom from the Tank. Dom, what do you got for us?
Long compared to our expectations, but we're still going to come in under 2 hours, so proud of us in that way.
Unless you have a very long-winded fun fact, Dom.
Here as I talk about us going quick and run out more clock. Because I want to count us down to the final horn. No, it's a quick fun fact because we've sprinkled in all my other fun facts along the way. Corey, you agreed this was pretty funny, at least, even if it's not fun for the man himself. But Jakub Dobeš is now the first goaltender in 20 years to be, well, he is the most penalized goaltender in 20 years and the first to receive 4 penalties in a single postseason since Dwayne Rollason for the 2006 Edmonton Oilers. So he's been making all of these awesome saves. He's been stealing rounds, honestly, for Montreal, going all the way back to that round 1, game 7 against Tampa Bay. But he's also been getting in there and being scrappy and taking the occasional penalty because he is still young and learning like the rest of that Montreal team and prone to some errors now and then.
Prone to some errors is a nice way of putting it. But once again, Montreal is just beating themselves. And doing that does not help you by any stretch of the imagination. But you can't fault him for his feistiness. Hey guys, can you go and get me a shutout on my birthday? Sure, man, we got you. No. You weren't supposed to get shut out. You were supposed to help me shut the other team out. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm trying to be kind with how I'm saying it because he's had a rather superb
He's been their
playoffs.
Best player by far.
It's not even close.
Yeah, if we were giving out MVPs right now, he definitely would be my top contender for, the Conn Smythe. Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, reach out to us on our socials or email, and we'll be happy to try and answer it. Best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is follow us on whatever platform you're using and to share this podcast everywhere you can with everyone you can. I'm Captain Avalanche Corey.
And I'm Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone.